Gutierrez. I am the regional advisor on social statistics. I work in the statistics division of ECLAC. Thank you for joining us in this meeting. This is the second round meeting. Yesterday we had a meeting with the Latin American countries, and today with you guys from the Caribbean countries. And thank you so much for joining us on this consultation on the revision of the United Nations Handbook on Household Surveys. Uh, as a little introduction, United Nations Statistic Division is working under the guidance of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. And they are in this project on the revision of this handbook on household surveys in order to revise and review and update the series of methodological publications regarding household surveys. And they reach out to ECLAC and CARICOM, and we sent a link, an invitation to you. And here we are in this meeting. Thank you for joining from the Statistics Division, and on behalf of Rolando Campo and Javier Mancero, Rolando, the chief of the Statistics Division, and Javier, the chief of the Social Statistics Unit, we give you the welcome here. Along with my colleague, Haoi, from the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Survey, we will be conducting this meeting and this consultation. So the programmee and the contents of this meeting will be a short, very quick introduction and welcoming from myself, and then I will give you the floor to Haoji, who will give us like a review, and will make a presentation on the conclusion of the technical meeting, the first technical meeting that we had in China at the beginning of this year on January. And then we will start the discussion on what should be covered by the handbook. And then we will give some comments at the end. So let's start. So I will give you the floor, Haoyi. Thank you so much for joining us also, and for making this consultation with the Caribbean countries, and including us, us, the region, Latin America and the Caribbean, on these kind of meetings. So with no further ado, how are you?
Thank you so much, Andres, and our colleagues from MACLAC for the Statistics Division for your support. It's really great to have this opportunity to work with our countries. Let me see whether I got the right one. And thank you to all the colleagues who are here to join the conversation. As Andres said, we are here really to listen. Me trying to get myself done, but the handbook that we had, I'll go through a little bit on the history. The handbook from the United Nations Statistics Division that has been used to guide countries in week one. The revised one to be really relevant, and then they will support our countries and national offices in your work on related to household surveys. This is why we consider the consultation extremely important, informative for us to know which direction we should be going to. So before I start, I work at UN Statistics Division and leading the work on household surveys, but I'm also the coordinator for the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. A few words about this group. It was established in 2015 under the aegis of the UN Statistical Commission, with three main objectives: improving coordination of surveys, advance cross-cutting survey methodology, and also enhance communication and advocacy. Right now, we have 11 international agencies as members and 10 rotating member states, and the secretariats with UN Stats Division and also ECLAC Stat Division as part of the secretariat. The group is currently co-chaired by the World Bank and UN Women. So our group works through time-bound task forces. So over the years, we have established quite a number of task forces that after the work is done, and the task force will officially close, and then we start a new one. So the task force usually are led by members, and then with contributions from members and non-member experts. So why during COVID, I'm not going to say how important household survey is. It's still very important. However, we face a lot of challenges, right? We all know about the response rate and then the timeliness, availability, the coverage, and the use of household surveys. We're all struggling with very long household surveys and struggling with the coordination efforts within the country and also at the global level. You're often approached by many development partners, international agencies for surveys on all aspects, so it's very overwhelming. At the same time, there have been a lot of other data sources that are coming up, geospatial data, administrative data, many countries are exploring, and citizen-generated data that came, a lot of surveys were carried out by citizens and by civil society organizations. How do we work with them? And then, of course, there's the COVID pandemic that completely changed the survey landscape. For the positive impact is that I think countries come back, we are coming back from the discussion that big data will change everything and household survey will no longer be relevant. I think that has been changed during COVID and post-COVID. Now, we have, in relation to the handbook, that since we're talking about the revision of the handbooks, we had UN Statistics Division has been leading the work on putting down, work on guidance on household surveys. The most recent handbook on household surveys, which is a core, was in 1984. It's the most recent one. And then after that, we have done quite a few handbooks focusing on different aspects. I'm not going to list them all. They're available here. We also have a website that holds all this information with the links to some of the guidance. And for some, we couldn't even find the link to the original document. So these are the work under the UNSD leadership that's over the past 40 years. Now, just bring it back a little bit on, we are running the revision of the handbook. It will be under the guidance in collaboration with members of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. This is very closely linked to the position paper, which is a vision that by the working group, Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys, on how do we really position household surveys for the next decade. That paper was strongly endorsed by the Commission in 2022, and 2 years ago. That paper identified 8 technical priorities for household surveys, and then also put down the required enabling environment for surveys to really perform their fundamental roles. And what are these 8? I'm not going to read them out, but you will be able to see that this really covers a lot of things that all of us are working on in household surveys. We'll talk about integration and how do we design more inclusive surveys, especially now that with the declining response rate, sampling. How do we come up with frames that has contact information for telephone interviews, for example? That's one of the challenges, right? Can we directly measure things through Fitbit or devices and then mixed mode surveys? And how do we use parent data that has been collected, a lot of parent data with CADI and CAPI, and how do we use it? And of course, how do we really put down metadata for surveys and document the surveys? And of course, there's the machine learning, artificial intelligence. And lastly is the data access, discoverability, and dissemination. So this revision will be guided. It is a departure. So the position paper is really a departure point for our planned revision. As Andreas mentioned, we held the first technical meeting on the revision in January this year, and we have representatives from NSOs, academia, regional, international organizations. And then we structured our discussion around the GSBPM phases with overarching themes that we talk about. For example, how do we manage survey, data integration, inclusion, what are the emerging issues that's coming up, and the timeline. So even before the technical meeting, we had started our consultation with the key experts and countries whenever we have opportunity, trying to get input quite a few things. For example, what to include and how do we really present information with a balance between, sorry, I'm here, foundations and innovations. How do we make the book practical? We want the theoretical foundation, but we also like to have practical meanings, and then countries can really learn from others. So these were the discussions that already came out before the technical meeting in China. And then in China, of course, it gets reaffirmed and all these ideas came. So the key recommendations from the China meeting, we will have a revised core handbook building on the foundation of the 1984. The 1984 is still very good, still very relevant. Some elements are very out of date, but some still hold strongly. You might guess the elements that are out of date, for example, anonymization, dissemination, privacy, those were not or barely covered in the 1984. Methods for data collection has changed a lot, processing, right, with support of technology. But this foundation of sampling has not changed. Right? The theory of sampling hasn't really changed. So these were the discussion. So we will have a revised core handbook building on the foundation 1984, broadly follow the GSBPM phases, given that many countries are very familiar with this framework. I would like to see the steps through. And then there will be an overarching theme covering survey project management and how a survey fits into a broader national data ecosystem. This is not something very technical related to how to sample, how to do your weights and calculation, but it's really important, especially as we move into the mixed mode survey and the more technology is factored into all this, the more challenging it is to manage a survey. And so we will have a chapter on survey management. The next bullet point is about balancing the theoretical principles with practical advice I've touched upon a little bit earlier, and offering examples and tools. So case studies were really requested by countries. They would like to see case studies. And the other thing is drawing a line between the principles that we should follow. For example, we say we strongly recommend probabilistic sample survey is a key that's still to follow to tell us, how good we represent, how representative our sample is. But if there are other things that have been tested, countries would still like to see it, but we need to draw a line between some of the ideas, innovations are being tested in countries, but that doesn't mean they will be working. They will work in your countries, or it would eventually work out. So a lot of experimentation, I would say half of the experiments fail. So there was a request from our countries to draw a line between the principles and then innovative ideas that are being tested, but could work or might not work. And then strongly recommending that they still be tested or experimented with. Our countries from the Pacific communities have made requests, and also from ASCOR region, to really, for us to take into consideration what's specific, what are the specifics, how is it different in terms of running a survey for small island, and for countries under post-conflict, they will be very different. So what are the key aspects, and what kind of guidance that the countries in those regions could really benefit from? And of course, going back to 1984, right now we're 40 years from done. Things, so the survey landscape have changed. We have so much more work done. In the past 40 years, there are a lot of existing work. So the handbook is not going to be a huge one. It will really be referencing to existing materials that are already in the field. So we're not duplicating the work that others have done over the past 40 years. But we hope to be a platform, a linkage point there to bring all this together. In terms of dissemination, that printed copies will still be beneficial. I think we're sort of now debating on the checklist, but there will be a web-based platform with links to other resources, softwares, and tools. This is really to keep our manual and handbook up to date. We cannot have another one that will last. We should not expect another one that lasts 40 years. Many of the things that we worked on now today will be quickly expiring in 2 years or 1 year time. So we hope to really keep this up to date, to keep adding them. So there will be a web-based platform. AI chatbot. How do we really, can we use a chatbot to support the dissemination and access to information? And so the chatbot will not only get information from the handbook, this particular handbook, it will go to a larger literatures and handbooks in the background. Timeline, we now have an extended outline. We very much wanted to have feedback from you. And then October, end of October, we will have our second technical meeting to review the first draft. So that means before that, we'll have the first draft ready. January 2025, we submit the first draft to UNSC, and October 2025, the third technical meeting. And then 2026, STAC commissions, the time for us to present the final draft to the UN STAC commission. This is a very, very ambitious time frame. But if we were given enough time, I think we would be able to work on this for 10 years. So we gotta draw a line somewhere to have it, and just keep in mind that this is something that will be a work progress continues. Thank you so much for the consultation. Our colleagues have been offering and supporting us. We are also in discussion with ECA to consult with countries in Africa. And then we are been discussing with members within the Intersecretary Working Group for their input. So what do we need from you? Broader views on the revision. Where do you think the revision should focus on? What are the challenges? And we want to know also what kind of questions you'll be asking us. So we can, the handbook can respond to those questions. And this will also feed into the training of the chatbot. So the chatbot wants to know what kind of question you'll be asking them, the bot. What other things have been not covered in other guidance? They should be included in this. And one particular aspect, of course, is the management aspect, survey management. How do you get funding? For example, from your ministries, and there are good examples. How do you convince them that you should get funding for that? What format the revision should take? And then your specific feedbacks, right? The annotated outline. I'll put in the chat later on, and the structure of the chapters, question you might have, and case studies later on. So many countries ask for case studies on the specific point. So we would also like to know what questions do you have that you think you benefit from case studies from your neighboring country or from other countries, and we'll also come to you for case studies from your side. How can you contribute throughout the process? This is a 2-year process, right? We want your feedbacks through different stages, and we have some of you have been working with us since China, even before China, help review or drafting or preparing case studies to support the handbook revision. And this is our generic email. And then I also put my own email in the chat. If you like to talk or to have a conversation and to voice out your frustration with some of our work, this is really reach out to us. Now I would like to hand over to Andres.
Thank you, Harry. Before continuing, I would like to invite my colleagues to unmute themselves and make a short introduction. We have Andy. Andy, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello, good morning, Andres. Andy Morales. I am an assistant statistician too, from the Statistical Institute of Belize.
Thank you,
This is
Andy.
my first time participating in this consultation.
Thank you for joining.
Okay, thank you.
Brenda Lee, can you unmute yourself, Brenda Lee? Can you hear us, Brenda Lee? Adderley?
Good morning. Good morning. Sorry about that. I had a little problem a while ago. My name is Brenda Adderley, and I'm from the Bahamas National Statistical Institute in the Bahamas. And I am happy to be on the conference this day.
Thank you, Brenda Lee. Next, Kim Sanders. Kim, can you unmute yourself and make a short introduction?
Yes, good morning, all. I'm Kim Saunders from the Bahamas National Statistical Institute. I work in the census section. Glad to be a part of this household survey meeting this morning.
Thank you, Kim. Next one is Lalita. Can you hear us, Lalita?
Hello, good morning. I am Lalita Sohai with the CARICOM Secretariat. I am a senior statistician responsible for census coordination, population, and social statistics. I just want to take this opportunity to let you know also that Halim Bizan, the director, will be joining us late because he had a prior urgent meeting to attend to. So he will join hopefully before shortly. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you, Lalita. And now, Paul Orman.
Yes, Paul. Good morning. My name is Paul from Central Statistical Office, Grenada. I'm attached to IT department / data processing unit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Rachel Jacob.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Jacob, and I too am with the Central Statistical Office Grenada. I head the survey section in the department.
Right, thank you so much. Maybe Javier, do you want to say hi?
Thank you, Andres. Yes, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Sorry that I joined a little later at the start of the meeting, but we're looking forward to listening to your comments and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. And now we have Halim. Hello, Halim. We are just introducing ourselves. If you want to say hello, you are very welcome, and thank you to be here.
Hello, good morning. Sorry I'm late. Halim Brazan, Director Regional Statistics, CARICOM Secretariat.
Thank you, Halim. All right, I'm going to share my screen. There it is. And I just want to mention that we have these chapters. This is like the structure of the handbook. And the aim of this meeting is trying to brainstorming some ideas on each of the chapters. So this is like how the handbook will be organized. And if you look closer, all of these chapters represent some tasks of the process of of the household survey process. So we need to define, after, well, of course, a short introduction, the needs, the scope, and some business cases. This will be our chapter 2. In the chapter 3, we will be discussing all of the stuff regarding survey management as a big task. Then we will have the questionnaire. Then we will have the frame and the sampling. Then we will have the data collection process. Then after that, we will have in the chapter 7 the data processing, and then it comes the weighting, then it comes the analysis, and finally the dissemination. That's like the structure that we have, that our colleagues in UNSD, led by the Intersecretariat Group, have agreed. As you can see, this structure is very similar to the generic statistical business process model framework. It doesn't align completely, but it is similar, you know. And we will want to include some cross-cutting themes or topics in each of the chapters. We want to discuss about quality frameworks in each chapter, value for money, this data integration, and how integrating data can contribute to each one of the tasks. We want to discuss also inclusivity, interoperability, and program management. So, we will want that the handbook can be used for other readers in National Statistical Institute, like a guidance. We want to help readers to find specific solutions and examples and case studies. We want this book to have a structure that allows to have not only a printed version, but also a digital version that can be easy to navigate from one topic to another. We want the handbook to be organized in, these chapters that are there in the slide. But we want like this hierarchical structure, because all of these tasks are composed by subtasks and dependencies, and we will want to include each important process as part of this hierarchical structure of the book. Because within a task we have subtasks, and the subtasks can be also divided or split into some other process. But our colleagues have agreed that this handbook should be different in terms that there will be like a cross-country applicability, and we want this handbook to be differentiated from the other resources out there in the literature, because we want like a global audience. So each chapter will need to accommodate to the needs of the country. So this is why we extended an invitation to you, and thank you for being here, because we want to include all of the views of each country, and because we know that we have some differences on how to implement household surveys around the world. So it will be very important that you can contribute and comment and make suggestions on the structure or the chapters or the subtask of the process, or maybe you can add some country examples, country experiences. They are very welcome. because like that we can add this Caribbean taste to the handbook, and that's very important for us. I will just want to add how we are thinking the handbook chapters. The first thing that I will want to mention is that there should be like a first overview in each chapter and roadmap. We want to introduce readers to the task specifically, questionnaires, sampling, frames, analysis, weighting, etc., and the subtask, like a process, of the survey, of the household survey process. And we will want to show how these subtasks and processes relate to each other. Then we will want to add like a how to do that section, in which in those sections we will want to provide like an in-depth description of the process, and that will be like the main part of the chapter, in which we are dealing on how to complete the subtask or the processes that are involved in each chapter. Of course, we will want to know how you guys in the National Statistical Offices are completing each step of the tasks or the subtasks. So this is important for us to understand how we can or understand how you are dealing with these kind of processes. In this how-to section, we will want to include or to highlight country case studies, in which we can, provide some real-world examples on how national statistical offices make the approach to each of the steps of the household survey process. And of course, we will want to show how you can mitigate some risk or challenges situations or difficult situations, and this is important for us. This is why it is important for us to know your experiences from the Caribbean. And we will want to add like this in this chapter a section that describe future directions or innovations. Maybe we will want to add what are the leading edges in each task, or suggest future directions. In this case, we will want to know what are you doing in your National Statistical Institute or in CARICOM, in order to, in CARICOM, for example, to assist countries with this kind of innovations. And finally, we will want to add a list of references, like in this resources section, that in which the readers can, make click or go to read, to find a more in-depth information of the processes. And in these resources, it will be very, exciting to find a lot of resources from the Caribbean. How are you dealing with this problem, with the task, with the subtask? So if you have not only printed material or digital material, but also software, it will be very welcome. And this is like how our colleagues have structured the each chapter of the book. In the first, at first, an overview and a roadmap, then how to describing like an in-depth overview of the subtasks and tasks, introducing some innovations at the end, and the resources. And this is how the book or the handbook should be structured. So taking that into account, I will give the floor to you, to the audience, open the floor, and please unmute yourself and participate just um, if you want to mention, if you want to suggest something, if you want to make comments, or maybe if you want to ask that in some section or in some task or chapter should be included some topics that you find difficult, or whatever. The floor is yours for you to make comments on the structure of the handbook. If you want to add something else, be very welcome. So, Halim, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead, unmute yourself, and very welcome your comment.
Thank you, Andres. And I'm happy to see that that we've been advancing on this handbook for household surveys. My question is on whether or not, firstly, whether or not there's already a draft, because I joined a bit late, so I'm not too sure if there's already a draft of the handbook. So is there, or it's still in the development phases?
It is in development. Maybe Haoji will want, or Daisy will want to add to my answer, but at first we have this like board or group of people that will lead the writing of each chapter. Haoji is up there. Do you want to say something, Haoji?
No, I have not written anything yet. That's why we need your help.
Okay,
We
great.
have extended outline. We want to get feedbacks from you, especially from our NSOs. This is for you, for all of you, right? So we have extended outline. I mean, the structure itself doesn't deviate a lot from the GSBPI, so that's fine. The only addition is the survey management, which was strongly suggested, recommended by Lisha. She said she felt there was something like that's missing from a lot of our handbooks. It's a lot of theories and formulas, but how do you manage survey, which is a huge endeavor.
Right.
But very much would like to benefit from your countries on the outline, and just also given the specificities of the seeds countries, right? It's the small islands, and I think you share a lot of commonalities with Pacific Islands. They are different. What do we do if we run out of sample households? I think that's easily come up when. So these are the things, yes.
Yes. So, well, from our experiences in the 2020 round of population and housing census, we realized that it's difficult to achieve high response rates from surveys. So, of course, maybe a lot of publicity on the importance of these surveys to the public will have to take place. So maybe that is one area that could be highlighted to improve the outcome of that survey undertaking. And I'm not too sure in terms of the data collection whether or not you're considering mixed modes of collection. I think so that could also assist in improving response rate as well. And in terms of the data dissemination, are you considering factoring data anonymization? Okay. And I think that is it from me for now.
Oh, you are mute.
Okay, sorry. Absolutely, Halim. Thank you for your input. Response rate, it's there when we were working on the outline. So absolutely. And when is the publicity? I think it's in the initial stage on consultation. The other this cross-cutting theme is to make surveys more inclusive. That includes a lot. It will include a lot of. I hope the authors will have a lot of how do we make sure that the difficult to capture enumerate or interview households are in, the super wealthy one, or the ones that move a lot, so they do not want to respond. And so these are the ones and the marginalized that, or some try to hide from the official surveys. These are the inclusion, definitely on the publicity and consultation. Mixed mode, yes, big time. I think various ways of doing it. Managing mixed mode is going to be a huge challenge, especially if they're sequential, one after another. How do you dispatch your workforce, and what points of response do you think, okay, I'm done with the web, let me move on to the phone? And then when do you move from the phone to the in-person? So every step has implication. So that will be discussed. Definitely on the anonymization. So our colleague, I don't know, I'm sure you know Olivia. So he was convinced to be leading the drafting of the survey documentation, anonymization, dissemination. And anonymization is something that has been changing, right? It's like, I think every month there's something new from it. That's a part that's we need to keep up with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haline and Howdy. So if you, I would like to propose something, to guide the discussion. Why not going chapter by chapter or task by task, and maybe discuss if you would want to comment something on the task, or maybe if you want to mention some challenges, or if you have a good or bad experience on how you had managed, in terms of the process. And we have 10 chapters, but we can go point by point, in order to have a more organized and structured discussion. So, for example, in terms of needs, scope, and business case, I think that's a broad chapter. I don't know if you would want to mention something out there, or if we can move now to the survey management process. So let's discuss needs, scope, and business case, and survey management. How you colleagues can add something here. How are you dealing with these kind of topics? Given your context, you are in the Caribbean, not big countries, not a lot of population. How do you manage these two topics? Needs, scope, and business, and survey management. How are you?
I'm sharing the screen. Do you think it's helpful? Can you hear me? Well, so as we spoke, I was putting down, that's the extended outline that has been put together just to support, since you're covering the topic under this. Do you think it's helpful to share that, or it's too much details?
Colleagues, the floor is yours. If you would want to mention something about that. How are you specifying needs and determining the scope, and if you would want to mention something about that? And in terms of survey management, maybe here we have the outline, like the first version of the outline. Halim? The floor is yours.
Well, in terms of needs, and I think the countries can speak, but the the survey has to address some national priority, right? For it to attract funding and for there to be continuity. So a number of the countries are pursuing their National Sustainable Development Plan, and there are various indicators, some of which are SDG related indicators that that need to be reported on. So that's just me thinking broadly in terms of in terms of the ensuring that the survey being done is not donor driven, because oftentimes we tend to do a survey because there's funding for it, but it is not factored into the national statistical system or as part of your national strategy for the development of statistics as an important instrument that needs to be implemented to collect information that will serve the public's interests and would inform policymakers. So I think these are some of the things that could be stressed when developing this this area here, because at the end of the day, we're producing statistics for it to be used, and oftentimes we do a lot of these surveys and invest so much money on these surveys, and only one indicator or just a few indicators that are being used, and it is not the information that that the survey captured is not being requested from the relevant authorities. And I'm just throwing this out there to get reaction from the other persons, the other member states who are there, so that they could share their experience where that is concerned.
There's a chat. And Andres, do you want me to respond to this?
No, please go ahead. I'm just writing in the chat or sharing with you the 10 chapters. If you don't want to follow on you know, this chapter by chapter, or if you want to add something, just unmute yourself and feel free to speak of whatever chapter you will want to mention.
Yes. So Ali, absolutely. First of all, very happy to report, I think Lisha is going from Jamaica is going to lead the drafting of this chapter. One of the things that really is when you get this kind of request from donors, and how do you push back? So we will focus be stressing a lot on driven by national priorities, not by donors. But even within the country, when you have multiple requests from all stakeholders, and then that clearly accommodating everything will be going way beyond the survey can accommodate, so with the survey that can hold. So that is that will be definitely emphasized. But we're also thinking of really providing practical guidance on how to push back if things wouldn't work, or sometimes if the topic just doesn't fit with this type of survey, and how do you push back? How do you communicate with national examples? So hope that it's really providing, how to. Yes, you should not do this, but how to do that with some examples, so that we will be coming back to all of you and then ask, have you had instances pushing back one of the donors or one of the ministries on something that's unreasonable or you cannot accommodate? How did you do that?
Hello?
Over. Yes.
Richard Jacob from Grenada. I am just thinking what could be included is, like Mr. Brezan said, we know surveys are expensive, and sometimes we have to look at what it is we're able to do. And what I think we should include is using a modular approach to doing surveys. So if we can include how to attach a module rather than conduct an entire survey. So within our labor force survey, if we can develop different modules so that they don't have to always be in the survey, but if there is something that we need to study, something is of high priority, it can be done within an existing survey. That way it reduces cost and so I don't know.
Yes, you're right. I'm trying to look where we have it. We absolutely have it because they seem to be coming. There's a place that we have been talking about. So there was this overarching, can't find it. We call it omnibus survey that seem to be sort of picking up by countries to have to adopt modular approach. So there will be a definitely discussion on that. I'm trying to recall where we have it. Collection. No, training of trainers. Yeah, but let me note it down, but I think we definitely have it. We have some kind of version control issue with this outline, but I'll put it down. Thank you. That's definitely the Pacific communities, it's going towards that direction. I think Latin America has a lot of integrated with different modules rotating. No, Andres?
Yes, how are you?
Yes. Oh, I asked you a question whether so the service that taking modular approach becoming more integrated. You can have such a module rotating every few years, not to be, and then you have the core and then additional module then. So where a colleague from Grenada was asking whether we can provide guidance on, you know, if you're not doing a new survey completely, what are the things that we need to be careful when we add modules, right? You cannot just add like that, but
Yes.
my question to you is, I think Latin America, there are quite a few countries that are doing that.
Yes. We have here in the statistical division in ECLAC, we are giving a technical assistance on those topics, specifically how to coordinate modules and the selections of the dwellings and primary sampling units from sampling frame. And we can give some examples on how, for example, Ecuador or Costa Rica are dealing with that, trying to make this transition to a coordinated and integrated household survey system. But I don't know if you have experience out there in the Caribbean, because here I think, or I suppose that you can have like a problem in this, or a challenge. I mean, a challenge is a better word, in coordinating. Not only the modules that are included in the surveys, but also the selection of primary sampling units. All of these things, I think that can where they can be like in frame sampling, survey management, on also in questionnaire, how you deal with these new modules inclusion. Brenda Lee?
Yes. Good afternoon again, everyone. Well, midday. I was sitting here and I was thinking, for instance, the comparison between the two survey, let's say the labor force and the household expenditure, when we talk about modular approach. I think the question is the frequency and the overburdening of the placing an overburden on the labor force survey, right? And you have a survey like the household expenditure survey that is not done frequently. Let's say it's not done, it's supposed to be done every 4 years, or it may not be done every 4 years. So, whenever you have to do it, you have a vast amount of information you will need. And you're talking with modules and persons wanting the different modules into the survey, what is already comprehensive. You're talking about maybe the health model, the social service module, and the survey becoming much larger and placing more more burden on the household to get the information, the time, and having a long survey going into the field. How do you cope with this kinds of situation, or what recommendation you have in terms of keeping the questionnaire to a size that will not require too much time into the household?
And just, do you want to take that? And I
No,
completely hear you.
I just
I
wanted to
don't
say
have a
that,
good
that's a good
response.
question to be addressed in the handbook.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good question, and I think this is something that goes way beyond the handbook, right? It's for us to work together and to see how can we, because we have our countries and agencies that have been designing the data collection, and it gets heavier and heavier. I don't know at what point that we say stop, that's it. We're sick of doing this. Um, and ultimately, I think we all need to push back at one point in saying that's too much. But honestly, I do not, I mean, we will say a lot about how to make sure, your assess your own question. So this is the guidance to countries. Assess the length and then make sure that, sort of balance on what you need to collect, what you should collect or you can collect, what's beyond the capacity of the load of that survey. But a lot of them will say it, will stress again, but I think it needs to be done. And I don't know how to say, because we've received so many requests and complaints about the length. For example, how do we reduce the length of income expenditure survey for national account purposes, right? It's so much calculation and so many questions. It's so lengthy. Can we do anything about it? There have been a lot of experimentation on trying to shorten it. It hasn't really worked. Like, at least the one I've seen, it didn't really work. There has been a lot of experiments on trying to make user or respondent experience better, through apps and this and that. It also didn't make a huge difference, as far as what I can see. So I think this is a work in progress, and everyone has to keep raising this to make the burden, I mean, less together. So you need to keep raising this, and we need to keep raising it, and our countries need to keep raising it, and push back and say either I'm not doing it, or you give me more resources. Um, no, that's a burning point that I don't know how to address, and then we don't have a solution for that.
Maybe we can address it in each chapter because I mean it's like it involves a lot of tasks and subtasks. How to um, make this burden less. Maybe integrating data, maybe with administrative records. I don't know, or from the planning of the modules. Nice question. Interesting challenge. Halim, do you want to add something about that, or you have raised your hand? Please feel free to speak.
Yes, and that continues to be a challenge for small countries with limited resources. The issue of burdening the questionnaires too much, because I think a lot of the countries try to maximize the limited resources that they have, especially in light of what is happening with the increasing demand for statistics. Of course, you have the 2030 agenda to report on, and as well as your own national priority. So the question is, how can the statistics office remain relevant? Especially since the role of the statistics office is to provide the information that is required. So I think I'm seeing I'm seeing the need, especially to address what the policymakers want. Um, at the same time, you have to balance that with the limited resources at the national level. Because you get into the issue of fiscal space. Um, of course, we could try to advocate for increased allocation, but sometimes that is not always possible. Um, and at the same time, you still want to make your work relevant by maximizing on the limited resources you have. So I think some of the countries end up in this situation of long questionnaires because of trying to satisfy these objectives, right? So it is indeed a challenge, and maybe it could be considered country specific if countries experience is that they can add modules, and they could get the response from the public, even though the questionnaire is a bit lengthier. Um then I think that could be considered also. And for the countries that do not have positive experience with that, then of course they they have that option to just go with the bare minimum. But I also want to add that there are certain surveys that you probably may not want to add anything extra to. Some household surveys, like the the household budget survey. This is already intense, so you don't want to overwhelm that survey too much, because I know in the context of the OECS countries and even some of the other countries, they have merged survey of living conditions with a household budget survey. And in some countries, the time taken to carry out one interview is, I would say, unnecessarily too lengthy. Okay, I'll stop here.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Oh, uh, I don't know. I can hear you. How are you? Maybe it's me, but I cannot hear you. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
right now. Right
Oh,
now.
I
Yeah.
don't know why my headphone.
So we skip everything you say.
No, so if any of you have good experience in reducing the workload of the staff and respondents burdens, and while still maintain to be relevant, work well. So share your experience, and then we'll share with others. Because it is something that I don't know whether it's at least from our side, we don't have a good solution for that. We'll definitely advocate for, trying to balance all this, but if anything that you could share with us, a case that you managed or something like that. And we are trying to work with countries to get a sense of what has been experimented, especially the budget surveys, the diary and all that. I mean, we're going to organize a webinar just on that, on all kinds of experimentation around the survey. It was interesting to see all the development, but so far I have not seen, something that will solve all issues. I'll stop talking. Sorry, please.
Yeah, that's a big issue. And I can mention that in Latin America, some countries also have mentioned that, there are like these requests from the ministries or some other entities of the government to add modules to the surveys. And that can be addressed in, along the chapters of the book, but specifically in needs scope and business case. And maybe in some other regions, after these consultations, that topics will arise or would arise as an important one, and the authors should cover that and make some suggestions. Thank you for all of these comments so far. Remember that we also have these other chapters, frame and sampling. Do you want to add something to frame and sampling? How are you dealing with these kind of things, and specifically with the census challenges that have been that the census coverage or the rates that we were used to are not there anymore. Now we have some challenges in terms of covering and non-response from the census. How you think that can be a problem in order to define a new sampling frame, and how that can be a problem defining some, the new sampling designs. I don't know if you colleagues want to add something to that frame and sampling. And we also have some other chapters, data collection, data processing, weighting, analysis, and dissemination. Feel free to unmute yourself and make comments, suggestions. Halim, you have raised your hand.
Oh, did I?
No, Halim.
Yes. Maybe we could get the reaction from some of the countries in terms of the work that they're doing in addressing the undercoverage in their sample frames, because it's important that that you have the frame that is used is a comprehensive frame that because that could affect the reliability of your survey. So maybe countries could share their experience. So for example, if there's a particular enumeration district from the census that there's an undercoverage, is there the intention of going back out post the census to try to do some verification and try to list again, so that you'll have a comprehensive listing before implementing your sample, and what other quality control mechanisms that you're putting in place to ensure that you have a robust frame.
Thank you, Halim, and that has something important, you know, updating the listing of dwellings in the primary sampling unit, and how that can compromise the, you know, inference of the design-based approach in household surveys. Anyone else? Do you want to add something to that about regarding frame and sampling, colleagues? Feel free to speak up and just mention whatever you consider important. And we have also data collection, data processing. Regarding the data collection, do you still use paper in order to collect the data from your surveys, or have you made the transition to, you know, these tablets or these digital devices? What about that? Is that something that that concerns your process out there, your surveys, or not? Paul? Paul, we cannot hear you. Not yet. Not yet.
Well, if I may, could I?
Yeah, in the
I'm not
meantime.
sure. Yes, I'm not sure of any countries.
Hello.
I stand to be corrected.
You hear me now? Speaking.
Now we can hear you. Please go ahead, and then Halim. Thank you. Paul? Paul, can you try again? We cannot hear you. All right. In the meantime, Halim, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So if I may, I can't recall any countries who are still using PAPI for data collection for household surveys. My colleague Lalita probably could indicate that if she has any evidence to the contrary. But as far as I know, I think all statistics office have made that transition. In fact, all the censuses that were done was done via the CAPI. Or I should say digital, because there may have been some variation between CATI and the web base also. But I'm not too sure if any country intend to go back to doing paper-based surveys.
Okay, I could comment now. This is Lalita. I know that the countries would have transitioned to copy generally. But of course, PAPI, they tend to use that just as a backup option when the technology fails. And in some countries like Suriname, Guyana, I think to some extent Belize, they would have Wi-Fi issues. So, and then the terrain to travel for Guyana in particular and Suriname, they have challenge with travel, water and all of that. So they tend to have this backup paper questionnaire to be used. So, but generally it's copy being used for household surveys and the census. As Mr. Brazan said, it's all the countries are using copy for their they have used copy for the censuses, and the ones that are still to get it done to conduct their census, they're also going to use copy.
Thank you, Lalita. Rachel?
Good afternoon again. If we can just step back a bit, I just want to mention that Grenada is one of the countries that would have had issues with our data collection. We were not able to collect all of our population and housing census data, and I think it is very important that we include in the handbook how we treat with that, because I know you guys, we were speaking to having a robust frame, and without having collected 100% of the data, it is difficult, especially where what we're trying to achieve now is that you could have all of the buildings geo-referenced, and it's much easier. It could become much easier to go back to the household so that the interviewers could be directed using the GPS location to the household. It is really so important that we make, we attempt to clean up that frame. And what we're doing currently for our survey is to use the frame. We would have had to do some imputation to bring the population up to as near 100%, but the reliability of what is happening in the ED at the ED level, which is so critical for when we do our sampling, is not maximized. So we are going back out into the field in areas where we did not achieve the 100% to try to update, and the process we're using, or we would use, is to look at the points that we would not have collected during the census and try to update using those points, going back to those points that we don't have information for. And so yes, I think it's critical that we include for as a guide how we can go back to those areas to ensure that a frame from the census is complete to do surveys.
That's a nice concern. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing that with us. Paul, are you there? Can you hear us? Paul? We still cannot hear you.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to the data collection part. I think Mr. Brazan has highlighted that we use CAPI, but what I think might be might be an easy path going forward is because we design our data, our question and answer survey solution, right? And then we use CAPI to collect this data. That will involve us going to the field with the tablet and you interview persons one-on-one. But what I think might be an easy path going forward, I mean, in other surveys going forward, like Ms. Jacob said, we have a very low response rate, right? But something to consider is if it is possible to design the questionnaire in a way where persons will be able to administer the questionnaire to themselves, meaning because on CAPI, there is an option where you could send the link, you would generate a link, it's called the carry, you send the link to the persons or to the household, where they will be able to respond to the question and fill out this question and send it back to you, right? That's one of the area where we could maximize the response rate, where persons would be able to answer these questions on their time, not when somebody come to them and they were busy, they're not really ready to respond to it. So I think in handbook could consider these options where persons could self-administer this question to themselves and fill it out and send it back to the CSO or to the persons who managing the census or the surveys. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul and Rachel. Halim?
Okay. Well, I heard what Paul just said, but I want to caution against doing that. I think it is dependent on the survey that is being done, how intensive it is, because I think the interviewers play a very important role, and these persons are the persons who are trained to administer the survey, especially if we want to ensure that what we're collecting is quality information. So I think that should be subjective to the type of survey that is being done, and probably it should be the self-enumeration should be considered as a last resort, right? Because at the end of the day, it is not only response rate that we consider that we should be considering, but it's also data quality. So it has to be there should be a balance that we need to strike between the two, because self-enumeration, a lot can go wrong with that.
Thank you, Halim. We are just taking notes and writing it down, everything that you just said. And thank you, colleagues, for your cooperation. Anyone else want to add something about data collection, data processing?
Eh, Good morning once again, Andres.
Yeah. Go ahead,
I
Andres.
wanted to speak on our experience in conducting the 2022 population and housing census. It was the first time that we conducted the data collection using CAPI. It was done fully in CAPI. And we saw also the introduction of digital maps. The SIB built their own mapping application, which assisted in expediting the process in identifying the households in the field. With regards to challenges with response rates, coverage, and so forth, the most critical areas in the country, what we had to implement was a shorter version of the census questionnaire. In that way, we did not um, I say we didn't create any, or we did not affect the quality of the data, because we didn't use, as was previously mentioned, we didn't opt to use the self-administered because of um, the instrument itself requires you to have received training to be able to complete the questionnaire. So we opted in using what is a short version of the census questionnaire. Thank you.
Excellent. Rachel?
You know, I just want to endorse the teamwork in data collection. I know it's not always practical, but I can say that what we would have seen is that if you're able to go outside to do the data collection as a team, it there is so many benefits to that in terms of motivation and of the others, and it encourages response when the community see a group of people. It is so much easier. It is so much their cooperation is so much enhanced. So I just want to endorse teamwork as a way of collecting data when we do surveys.
Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else? Do you want to add something on that regard? Right, Halim?
Yes, and in support of what Rachel is saying, that that the teamwork also, it minimizes the risk of I would say error, or even the risk of enumerators falsifying the information, like saying that they're out in the field and they're not. You know, even though you have the how you call it, the georeferencing, right? That by itself wouldn't even be able to validate that that they actually went to the area and actually conduct the interview, because oftentimes, especially if they collect a telephone number, right? They could there could be a tendency, although it is illegal, right? But there could be a tendency of falsifying, or even or not even not implementing the survey in its entirety. So I think the teamwork could enhance the quality. It's good for quality assurance as well.
Yes, for sure. Rachel, you still have your hand raised. Do you want to add something or? Okay. Lalita, please go ahead.
Yes, just to add to what Halim said and Rachel, and to caution that while the group approach works well, and that is evident from the census of all the countries, one of the things we might want to consider putting in the handbook is the timing of the survey, which will allow for availability of field staff, because working in a group, as we know, it's full-time kinda, or availability of all the field staff to go in a group setting. So the timing of the survey should be highlighted. Maybe school break, or those kind of, but of course not at Christmas time when persons wouldn't be available to talk with you and that kind of thing. So just thought I'd throw that in.
Thank you, Lalita. How do you want to add something else?
I have a
these
question.
topics?
Can you hear me? I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
So I've noted down that you might see that in the outline. I have a question for the quality assurance. How have you been using the power data from the CAPI device that been generated for quality assurance purposes? This is something that everyone has, we have quite a few countries in China have raised that, and I have not seen systematic guidance on how to use CAPI. I know the survey solution has something and how the power data can be used for quality assurance purposes, or even for weighting later on. I don't know. I mean, I've seen some studies, but I'm not so sure how it's being used in countries. There's just so much data being generated. Is there a way for us to use it? Oh, whether the census have been using it. I've seen EBG had done that, I think, Brazil. And just you might know more. I'm sure you know more on this.
Yeah. But in the Caribbean, I don't know. Maybe Halim should know something about the use
I
of
think
hard data. Yeah, go ahead,
I
please.
think I think you need to address to the member states. 'Cause I've certainly not used that before.
Yeah, that can be addressed in the handbook, maybe with some example of some other countries. And how useful is that? Will be that for the Caribbean. We have also weighting, analysis, and dissemination. We have not talked about weighting. How about weighting, colleagues? Do you want to add something to that? You had mentioned imputation. You had mentioned how the non-response can affect the survey inference or the validity or reliability of the estimates. But how about weighting? Maybe is that challenging to you or not? How is your approach to the weighting stage in sample surveys? Aline?
Well, I think most countries may have a challenge from there on. And I think greater technical assistance might be required, because oftentimes you would see at this stage is the point at which a consultant will come on board to assist with that process. So the weighting is absolutely important, and but we need to ensure that it is done correctly, because even that could introduce bias into the final results, depending on how the weights are distributed.
Yes, absolutely. Rachel? We cannot hear you. Can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, just to add to Mr. Brizan, indeed, we would, the handbook should give some guidance as to weighting. Currently, we have to get support to complete our weighting, and guidance. Any guidance in the handbook would really be a good thing.
Great. I think that we can write it down and address this request in that chapter, That chapter should be a guidance for countries on how to perform a good weighting scheme. Anyone else on weighting? Weighting. We still have 20 minutes. And we also have analysis and dissemination. Javier?
Thank you, Andres. This is just a thought, because now that we're discussing weighting, one part of the weighting has to do with the methodologies, etc., applied when calculating the adjustment factors of the survey. But there's also the issue of what is the reference data that you have for the weighting? It's just the population estimates, for example, by age or sex, etc. If you're going to do the calibration, and maybe there's an issue there of what is the information that countries in general have access to when trying to do the estimation of, or in particular, I mean, this is not so much the weighting, but the 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 calibration process in particular. And I think that one of the challenges comes not so much from the methodology itself, but from the fact that the availability of good information to perform the calibration can be demanding, can be not enough what you have available there. And so I don't know if the manual can address maybe just as a small box or something like that. What are the different kinds of information that could be used for a process like that? Just a thought. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Javier. Does anyone want to reply to what Javier just said, or want to add something else on the waiting stage? How about analysis process and finally dissemination? Do you have some concerns, some comments, some suggestions on how to properly analyze a survey, or do you want some comments on dissemination? What about the dissemination of microdata, the dissemination of the methodology of the survey itself, the dissemination of the questionnaires? How about that? I don't know if you want to share some experiences with us on analysis and dissemination. Do you, for example, does CARICOM has like a repository or some yeah, repo on methodologies of household surveys in the Caribbean or not? Do you think that should be interesting? I don't know, Halim want to add something to that?
Well, we're in the process of building a repository. However, I think we would still need to, in terms of survey data, you would still need to update that with the methodology and all of these things. But we have household surveys, I would say, was never our focus. So we have not done any common harmonization of methodology where that is concerned. Although we have achieved that for the census in terms of establishing a CARICOM core set of questions for census, but we have not really addressed that as yet, where surveys, household surveys are concerned. So that's one of the things that that we're looking that we may have to that we may endeavor to do in the future. However, in terms of dissemination, and the reason why I highlighted dissemination earlier, well, anonymization, I should say, is that it presents an additional challenge for small countries, given the size of our countries. The task of anonymizing is even more difficult because with the small size of country comes the increased disclosure risk. So it's a higher risk of even though you anonymize, there is still that disclosure risk of being able to identify a respondent. So yeah, so whatever the whatever anonymization is being done, it should be fully aligned with the fundamental principles of official statistics, and also the mechanisms that that is provided for under the UN to protect the statistics office. But we do understand that part of the utility of the information that is being produced is being able to access, for universities, researchers to be able to access the microdata to do further analysis, because you'd appreciate that there's so much that that a statistics office can do with amidst dwindling resources. So we have to create that environment that is going to allow for the sharing of this information that is in line with our statistics legislation and also the fundamental principles of official statistics.
Excellent. Thank you, Halim. Colleagues, anything else about analysis or dissemination? Right. Yeah, Halim.
If
Please.
I may, I don't know. I mean, I could just highlight the challenge there. It has always been a challenge in CARICOM to analyze data in a timely manner, right? That has always been an issue for small island developing states, and you know that that the data would lose relevance by the passage of time. So I'm not too sure if that could be addressed in the handbook, but I could tell you that it is an issue. Maybe that there's a lack of resources at the national level to have a quick turnaround in terms of in producing the results. But because of that, it is affecting the entire process of advocating for the importance of statistics, especially if you cannot guarantee that, say, by an advanced release calendar, if you cannot guarantee that that the government or the public should receive these results from the survey by a certain time, then that creates a problem.
Yeah, completely. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else that wants to add something? If you allow me, I should recall that the handbook will be structured in 10 chapters. Each chapter will represent a task of the whole process of household surveys. We have discussed needs, scope, and business case. We have discussed survey management, questionnaire, frame and sampling, data collection, data processing, weighting, analysis, and dissemination. If you want to add something else right now, it's your time. Please speak up and mute yourself, and we are more than pleased to hear you. Lalita, please go ahead.
Thank you. I was just thinking, with household surveys, one of the challenges we have, is where the experience from one survey to the next is not accessible. So I was wondering if, I don't know if it could be in the handbook or advise in the handbook or something where it could be documented. Like for the census, you have the administrative report where they would document the process and the challenges and the, you know, those kind of things. For a survey, I don't know if I mean, during data collection, during planning, you have challenges. I don't know where we could advise and propose maybe a template or a form to be used to document these very important experience that could be used moving forward to other surveys or similar surveys. I was just thinking aloud there. Thanks.
No, thank you, Lalita. Thank you. All right. Daisy is writing in the chat. She said, just wondering if any of the National Statistical Offices have implemented techniques that allow to overcome the budget limitations, such as a smaller estimation, or have used technology to collect data in a more effective way with lower budget. And she refers specifically to data integration and these new approaches. I don't know if you want to share some experience on that regard, or if that kind of techniques are something that you are willing to experiment or want to try, you know, in your national statistical offices. Maybe Halim can give an overview of the use of these new methodologies in the Caribbean. You
Well,
can go
I
ahead.
have yes. Well, I have not had any experience with that. I know countries are some of the countries who had fairly low response rate are considering the small area estimation for the census, right? But I'm not too sure about its application in household surveys, right? Similar techniques in household surveys. Um, well, similarly in terms of the data integration, I think it is important for us to always leverage the availability of administrative records as much as possible to reduce the burden on our household surveys. You know, but obviously there's a lot of institutional strengthening that would be required before we get to that point, you know, and I mean that is all in the aim of eventually being able to move towards register-based census, but these things will take time to build. But of course, if there are best practices in the region, positive experience in that, we welcome those, so that and that could actually inform our plans going forward.
Great, thank you. Brenda Lee, you have opened your mic. Do you want to add something?
Oh no, sorry.
It's okay. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I will share my screen right now. Or not, I have not the slide here. But if you want to add something else later, you can write to the email of the Intersecretariat Working Group that I will just put here in the chat, or maybe Daisy can help me write in the or put in the email of the Intersecretariat Working Group out there in the chat for everyone. So I just want to give the floor to Haoyi and Javier that will close the meeting. I just want to say thank you for being such a great audience and talking about your challenges, experiences, and thank you for allowing me to guide the discussion. So Haoyi and Javier, the floor is yours.
I don't have much to say. Really huge thanks to our colleagues. So I know you're all very busy. So really spending time with us and telling us what are the challenges and how you like to work together to address those challenges together. You've heard that for some we don't have a solution and we need to work together on the solutions. But I think this is really great, very informative. As you can see, I've already started putting some of your notes in. I know some are already included, but some are not included or particular out in the outline, put it there. So for the lead author to really take that into consideration. Just one quick question that to the sort of reverting to the last question I've heard about reflecting on the experiences. This has something we've been also thinking where to put it, evaluation, survey documentation. And thank you for the suggestion on the template. And we'll definitely revert that back to this group that have been putting together the outline to see, because some of countries have been doing that and then there's a system. And then we'll really hope to have that ready. Thank you. Thank you so much to our colleagues from ECLAC Statistics Division, Javier and Andres. Now I hand it over to you.
Well, I just also want to thank you all. Thank you to the countries that participated today and took your time to provide us your comments. That is very useful. Thanks also to Halim, CARICOM Secretariat, for doing this activity together. And also for your comments that have been very informative. And a big thanks also to UNSD, to Haoyi and team for holding these consultations. I think this is very important and is surely showing us that this new manual is going with a good start because this issue of having a lot of voices from the different countries surely will enrich the product that will come out. So have a great day and see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
All
See
right,
you.
bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.